So today, I'm the moderator for this panel 4. My name is Zhang Lei. I'm Vice Secretary General of CCG. I'm really honored to be here to share with your leading ideas. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists today, following alphabetic order. For this panel, we have invited the Chief Economist of the China Center for International Economic Exchange, Mr. Chen Wenlin. Mr. Chen. From the Center for International Security Strategy, Tsinghua University, Mr. Zha Wei. Gao Zhikai. Mr. Liu Hong, Director from CIR. Mr. Professor Shi Yinghong at the School of International Relations, Renmin University. Mr. Wang Yiwei. Mr. Wei Hongxiang, from researcher from the U.S. Institutes of the China Academy of Social Science. So before we start today, we have had more frequent international exchanges. The modernization process of China is a process of opening up, and the development of the world also needs the participation of China. As the top two economies in the world, there are some problems in China-US relations. Stabilization of the two countries benefit the two countries and can also inject new impetus to the world economy. Recently, China-US governments have organized some meeting. To some extent, people feel that it is recovering from a very low point. We have also prepared some topics for you to discuss. First question is opening up international cooperation. What are their role in China's development? Secondly, how to apply China's opening up in the world situation. How can we develop ourselves well and in the process provide more opportunities for the world? Recently, Lincoln and US officials have sent out some signals that want to relax the tension with China. And this is very rare. Does it mean that the China-US relations are entering a new stage, a new status? On December the 12th, China also filed the US measures to limit chips exports to China with the WTO, and show that the US continue to impose heavier sanctions on the chips for China. So there are still some contradictions. So in this context, how China can address this situation, and the upcoming China-US senior level discussions will also focus on such important topics. How can we be better prepared for this? So, in the interest of time, each of you will have 6 to 7 minutes. I will follow the alphabetic order to ask you to speak. So first, let me give the floor to Ms. Chen, Madam Chen. Sorry, I was tested positive for COVID, so I have a sore throat today. So sorry for that. First, very good repercussions since we launched the idea of the Chinese modernization. I attended a forum in Singapore last month. A very important topic is the Chinese civilization, and recently I attended a number of international forums. Many foreign friends also talked about Chinese-style modernization. The Chinese-style modernization is not something that China set up with its own standards, but it has some Chinese characteristics. It has some international commonalities. It also has some Chinese features in terms of commonalities to achieve modernization, for a country to be modernized, to reach the level of modernization. There are like the reports of the 20th National Party Congress. We have a huge population. We need to reach modernization of common prosperity for the whole population. We also need to balance the economy, environment, balance the human kind and environment. So the Chinese modernization is to achieve in this international context. China and the world are so closely linked together. So from 2012 to 2010, we account for 32.86% of the incremental value of the world economy. But quantity doesn't necessarily mean good quality. In terms of quality of our economy, if we compare it to the developed countries, there is still a huge gap. So these short weaknesses means that our modernization still face a lot of pressure. Like the chips you just mentioned, it's a choking point for us because we've been strangled because it is a choking point for us. So in terms of industrial design, EDA, to the chips. But including the innovation in manufacturing of the lithography machine, there's still a huge gap between us and the US and Europe. So to achieve Chinese modernization, it's not just the modernization of China alone. We need to view it in the international background. But for all these weaknesses in the international backdrop, there is still long way to go. We have to address the relative poverty or absolute poverty problem. We also need to address the relative poverty problem in China. So if we follow the World Bank 2020 August standards, the poverty population in China is still 300 million. So to achieve the common prosperity of the whole 1.4 billion population is not an easy job. To achieve the Chinese modernization is a target. It is not a reality. Our material civilization. Physical wealth is far from adequate. We're still at the early stage of socialism. Already 600 million people per capita income, monthly per capita income is below 1,340 million people. Their monthly income is below 2,000. So about 900 million people's monthly income is still below 200 RMB. So we need to achieve common prosperity for all the 1.4 billion population in China. This is our target. It's not just simply a slogan. We cannot see the target as the reality. We should not be complacent. We should not think that we are great. Actually, there is still a huge gap for us to cover. Although we are recovering our ecological system, a quarter of the new uh, forestation occurred in China. We have the chief of river system, chief of lake system, which are very good models. But we still face ecological problems like air pollution, water pollution, chemical pollution. All this needs to be addressed. We also need the peaceful development for the modernization. We need a good environment. We need to avoid derailment. We need to avoid collision. That also needs wisdom. To avoid derailment or collision,
our own strategies. So whether or not we can handle our own business very well, to this regard, we also have to understand whether or not we can maximize the friendship with more friends from the international arena, whether or not we can try our best to avoid the extreme situation to come. So right now, for United States, yes, we have to fight against something that is against our principle. But at the same time, we also have to make the right decision. For example, the state visit by Blinken in 2023, the visit paid by Blinken is not pursuing how to confront with each other, but instead as to how to come together and how to come towards cooperation in the end, and how to come together towards the right decision and also the right way of coexistence between each other. Right now, I think there are some very aggressive statements and sometimes even wrong statements made by Blinken, and even some statements and some behaviors and some actions that will lead to the disruptions and also chaos in the world. This is something that we would fight against very unswervingly. But on the other hand, the think tanks also need to shoulder the responsibility to do the rightful evaluation, and we have to spread our goodwill. Thank you. Professor Chen, from China's development that could not be separate from the world, and the world development could not be separate from China, and this regard is very good. Yes, so sometimes we have to be very aggressive, and sometimes also have to be modest and moderate. Yes, good. Sometimes we need to be more initiative and more proactive. There's no single measurement as to either right or wrong or either white or black. So apart from the extreme situation, there's a lot of things in between, and this room for in between is even bigger. Thank you, Professor Chen. Next, I'd like to invite Professor David. Okay, good. Thank you very much for your introduction and also invitation to me to attend this forum. I'd like to apologize first because probably I would not cover the full time of this session. Previously, I was scheduled to attend this session, and I was scheduled to attend another meeting by 4 as well. So probably I would not take the full participation of this discussion, and I'd like to spend 5 minutes first to share with you my observations on the modernization in China. Either country or all countries, all kinds of modernization could not be separate from opening. Without opening, there is no speak of modernization for China. Yes, the theory is very easy. The principle is also very easy because modernization would benefit from the opening, and we have benefited from opening for a long time, for 4 decades, because otherwise the momentum for economic development will decline. And this is the conditions that we have to claim before we modernize our country, without which modernization is just a futile measure. And second, in the past, we are always talking about opening up, but that is the single pattern of the opening up. Yes, Western countries and different countries have their own way of opening up. Different people and different countries, the states opening up differently. Talking about the opening up with the conditions and with the selectiveness and also with some good conditions, and that is the same true to China as well. And previously, Professor Chen has mentioned the issues like chips. We feel it is something that very distinguished right now, distinguishing very distinctively very much right now. And talking about the transmission towards something like the secure opening up, somehow right now we can see a lot of challenges and also the problems. And sometimes we can see that the power between each other are intertwined with each other. Without each other, the security, there's no speak of security for all. So the security are becoming stronger and stronger, and the pursuit for security is stronger and stronger. But we have to try to coexist in the way of pursuing the security altogether. So the security need to be shared by all, at least between China and Western countries, or the opening among the Western countries, not without problems, but actually we can learn something from them as well. The third issue is that with good conditions and the secure conditions to open, but how? Yes. Um, Probably the areas that has very little to do with the security, we have to open as much as possible. And because in these areas, some other countries are also open to you, but in some areas they're not open to you and even close the door to you. And how to protect those areas that is closed or not open yet, or how to keep the door still open in those areas which is open and always open. And of course, if you can protect them in a sustainable way and you can protect them against an infringement, that is okay. It is another topic. But right now, we're talking about the get rid of the confrontation, and even within the competition, we still have to coexist. Yes, so we also have to tackle the problem that our neck is choked by some people or some countries. And the neck choking is an insecure issue. So with your neck choked, there's no speak of security at all or safety at all. So when everything is constant, we are pursuing the development, and this is the pursuit and aspiration against which we have to cooperate. Yes, it's the matter of degree of acceptance. If we have a high degree of acceptance, then we can open even bigger and wider and accept and also attract more people to come. And but actually, in this regard, we don't have to follow the formal logic, because otherwise we would be even enclosed. And if we are too conservative, we will be even more enclosed. And last but not least, this is the U.S.-China relations. As up to now, we can see some turning point, but yeah, Bali summit set kind of conditions for us to stabilize the future relation. If in the next 3 to 5 years, if both sides are coming towards each other, are embracing each other, there's a lot of things that we share commonality. But this stable commonality, first of all, need to be relying on the maneuvers from China. Yes, we tried a lot towards this summit, and we have exerted and spread a lot of very positive signals to the world, to US. And secondly, we also need to have to receive the signals from US reciprocally as well. And so if otherwise China has to change its way of arrangement. And right now, I can feel that anxiety from our counterpart of the United States is declining. That is positive. And this is a very good trend. And we think that there are something wrong behaviors and wrong deeds done by United States, although they probably would not admit, but they have recognized that and they make some changes and shifts already. So I think in the future, the mismatch of the positions between China and the US, talking about a framework and talking about principles, well, we are talking about something macro, and China is talking, US talking about some micro. So sometimes we are mismatched and we are talking with each other about wrong things, about different things. But of course, yes, mismatch is okay. Mismatch exists for its own sake. And yes, we can talking about something macro, and we can talking something about the micro issues at the same time. Yes, if these two challenges could be controlled and managed very well in 2023, there must be some positive trends in the future. But of course, there will not suddenly a U-turn come into being. We have to expect a long term, like 2024 or something like that. And yes, thank you. Talking about the security, all great power would not pursue absolute security because the security is only a relative matter. Yes, the countries between countries, US and China, yes, so we have to reach some consensus between each other, and also we have to reach some consensus. Although the consensus reached, but still two different ideas, probably that would be misunderstood differently. And even sometimes that is the problem of United States. But of course, we have to stabilize ourselves and we have to stay poised, and we would stay reasonable and cool-minded. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I'd like to invite the next speaker, Professor Gao Jiang. Thank you, host. My name is Gao Zhikai, Victor Gao. I'm very happy to attend this afternoon session. Of course, it's Professor Chen and Professor Liu. We wish you stay healthy, and also for the COVID positive patients, we hope that you stay positive and stay fit. Yes, modernization for China right now at this particular point of time is very critical point of time. And we're always talking about this very important critical timing for China's modernization. But first of all, I'd like to share with you some of my own observations. I fully agree with Professor Chen's ideas. Previously, yeah, China's future modernization, the statement itself has been written into our document, has been documented, and that could not be changed. But actually, the concept needs to be taught very well and flexibly to other countries. The China's type of modernization and the China's type of socialism, I can compare these two. First of all, the rhetoric of this statement, probably we can make some room for flexibility. If China's patterns modernization, we have to talk about in a time matter. For example, well, by when we can realize that China's pattern modernization. Yet right now we are trying to pursue this modernization with Chinese characteristics, but it's still in a way. And China's future modernization, yeah, at the first glance, probably you just distinguish your own modernization as opposed to the modernization of other countries instead of coexisting together or in convergence with each other. So I think, first of all, China's pattern of modernization, probably we emphasize the China's characteristics instead of China exclusive modernization. Previously, I was receiving an interview from a TV program talking about the television station of India, Republic TV of India. The big title of this program, "The World Against China." This is the big title of that program. Well, of course, this is the propaganda of India, and they just randomly chosen this title. But I think we have to correctly understand the current changes of the world. India, for example, the population is about to surpass China. The world against China, stated by them, such a big country with the second biggest population, we have to be vigilant, and at the same time, we have to correct it as the commonality between China and the world instead of emphasizing the differences between China versus other countries, because the difference is different. Everybody is different from each other. Each country is different from other countries. So China's pattern where China's featured modernization, the modernization with China's characteristics as a rhetoric probably would misunderstand other people or makes other people misunderstand this concept. But actually, the modernization itself would be include the different styles and different features of the ways and the patterns and the trajectories of the modernization of different countries, because different countries have different faiths and beliefs and even religions. So talking about this, there must be some and many issues in common. We actually yet to reach that highland. But I think this is something that I want to emphasize and consult with you. So are we going to stay stagnant on just promoting China's differences, or we have to come back to some fundamental issues to actually highlight those issues that need to arouse the attention of the senior officials of China? But right now, of course, this statement has been ironed, uh, nailed down, and there's nothing we can do to change it. But historically, there's a lot of issues like this. Something has been determined, but after sometimes um, some art has been discovered. There are some good issues need to be added, and also the rearrangement need to be made. That is flexible and acceptable as well. Yes, we need to leave room for rearrangement and flexibility. Thank you.
So maybe we can say more about common interest. So how can we, in the context of agricultural cooperation, climate change, and for businesses, that is a very important actor in international relations. How businesses express their interest can also influence the decision making at the top level. At the top level, there is this terms, but we need to also contribute some detailed examples. Thank you, Mr. Gao. Next, I may give the floor Mr. Liu, Deputy Director of CCG, Senior Researcher. He also attended our ice-breaking tour of the US earlier this year. I'd like to share your thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. First, I wish Mr. Chen, Mr. Da can recover very quickly. You're positive, but that's okay since you're recovering. We're still anxious because we're still negative. First, I would like to congratulate the 7th China Global Think Tank Innovation Forum. I think the former speakers already gave very interesting remarks at this crucial juncture. I think you have shared some very good insights and serious analysis, some very good thinking. Mr. Zhang Wei asked a few questions. I would like to respond to the questions related to science, technology, and private sector. I would like to mainly make 3 points. First, opening up and international cooperation will continue to play a very important role as a bridge for us to achieve a Chinese-style modernization. We have gone through a few stages like introduce from abroad to learn, and then promote One Belt, One Road to promote development of the community for a shared future. So this bi-directional exchange and learning played a very important role as a bridge. So to achieve this ambitious role of Chinese-style modernization, it's an ambitious goal. In this process, reform and opening up will play an even more important role. I can share some data from the Ministry of Commerce. We look at inbound foreign investment by the end of 2019, more investment from more than 180 countries have entered China, and they are about 2% of market players and created 14 million jobs. And if we look at outbound investment from China by the end of 2020, foreign direct investment is 140 billion US dollars, up by 9.2% over the previous year. And especially for countries along the Belt and Road, investment increased by 14.1% over the previous year, higher than the overall growth. So China and the US are in China is an integral part of the world. We cannot ignore the rest of the world, the other 300 plus countries, simply because of the tensions between China and the US. Secondly, these sanctions on chips for China will have a huge challenge for the health development of Chinese industries. The reform of chips industry needs R&D, manufacturing, and market. Now, this fragmentation will lead to a huge loss of resources. A few weeks ago, I attended some forums in Shanghai regarding semiconductor chips. At those events, of course, we can see there are lots of challenges. We also see that there are some regional products are being developed. So with continuous investment, we will develop our own industry chain to make up for the weaknesses. According to the data from China Semiconductor Society, our integrated semiconductor grew by 18.2%. The chip output is more than 390 billion chips, increased by 16.2%. So the US Semiconductor Society mentioned that the Chinese companies' market share will increase to 17.4% in 2024. So by relying on our own indigenous innovation and science and technology development, we will become the third biggest semiconductor manufacturer, next only to US and South Korea. Because we have gone through some very difficult challenges, but with concerted efforts of the nation by mobilizing the private sector, by mobilizing the research capabilities of the private sector and research community, we have made great progress. A lot of progress has been achieved there are lots of sanctions, but in the long run, it can be a good supplement to the relevant industries in China. One last minute. State Council yesterday released the master plan to expand domestic demand by 2035, focusing on key areas to solidify the Chinese economy. So I think these actually address what we should do in the next more than 10 years. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Liu. As you mentioned, in terms of cooperation in the industrial chain, every country needs a stable industrial chain. Of course, Chinese industries need to be strong itself. Otherwise, we may face problems. China indeed has a very big market. When we expanding our domestic demand, it is an opportunity for both domestic and international companies. So it's not just about research for high-end products, but for agriculture, for climate change. The chips, these are all very good use case for chips, not just for chips from the US, but also chips from Europe. Any country alone cannot be sustainable. If US want to do it alone, it's not economical, it's not efficient. And we should keep the doors open. Thank you, Professor Liu. Next, let me give floor to Mr. Shi.
Which there has been no indication of leading to the escalation of the more than 4 years tariff war, trying to alienate as much as possible other Western capitals, especially those of EU major powers from Washington, has always been a part of Beijing's foreign policy. Though the available room of efforts and efforts themselves reduced much through the most recent years. Impending world recession will necessarily increase tensions among Western powers. A major factor that could stimulate China to do more in that, along with China's own urgent trade needs in a worse time. However, concrete and lasting mutual concessions on any major disputed issues will be quite difficult to resolve if one examines them one by one. Relations with major developing countries and regions are also what China have to pay attention and care, and taking into account of the impacts of turmoils as pandemic, Ukraine war, intensifying geopolitical competition by the West and of drawbacks of BRI implementation. What makes China's efforts more difficult, besides the much increased complexities in the external environment, is the reduction of China's capability in terms of economy, finance, foreign aid, as well as persuasiveness. In Bali Island and Bangkok, China did launch a widespread summit diplomacy toward developing countries. But there was an important and prolonged lag with India. Soon after that, the Defense Ministry of India declared the troops of India and China fought with each other by primitive weapons, including fists. For the first time since near 2 years ago, in the Dawang area along the eastern active control demarcation line, difficulties are still largely difficult, just like the relationship between China and West. I also have a last word. I would like to speak in Chinese.
Considering the current situation and also the tension in North Korea, as well as the consolidation of the alliance of the United States and its friends, right now China has to rely on itself, at least because the major counterparts of China's strategic partnership are not only the capitals, but furthermore like burdens. So China has to rely on itself. So the challenges in front of us externally is to prevent the tension getting worse and worse between China and United States. But from the recent situations, we can stay positive about the future trends. But the question is how to realize the long-term stability of China's economy and also the independent development of China's science and technology. Thank you very much, Professor Shi. Yes, like you have mentioned before, in many areas, we have seen and also witnessed a lot of challenges, and also the challenges are brought by a lot of changes. And during those changes, we have to find a stability position that is very important, but also very challenging. We need a lot of contributions by our experts. And yes, the China-US relation is the most complicated bilateral relations in the world throughout the whole history. And then we can see a lot of shadows and the reflections of China-US relations in many international affairs. So at the governmental to governmental dimension and the governmental to enterprise dimensions, as well as the enterprise to enterprise dimensions, and which also includes the situations like the chips and a lot of chip products. But the price has actually been very, very high right now. And yes, the voices probably need to be pipelined to the senior level of the United States. So Professor Wang, thank you. Thank you for your invitation. So first of all, I think the modernization with the China's characteristics of that. So we have to understand the documents. So when we are celebrating 100 years anniversary of the CPC, we have stated a lot of pros or advantages. And in this 20th National Congress of the CPC, we are talking about the modernization with the Chinese characteristics. So China's national revitalization probably looks like a modernization featured by democracy with Chinese characteristics. But whether or not with or without Chinese characteristics, the modernization is modernization. We have to seek the convergence. Why we still use the Chinese characteristics? Chinese characteristics actually is sort of inclusive features. We invite other countries to come together with us towards modernization altogether. That is also part of our features. of modernization. And according to the document of China's CPC, we are promoting and broaden the pathway of modernization featured by China's characteristics. And this is the target in front of us. And the former version of the modernization, if we still pursue the former version of the modernization, we are already modernized already. But this new version of the modernization, not the pursuit of the modernization from other countries or featured by other countries like the Anglo-Saxon or German or United States or UK or some other features. So if we can realize the 5 pillars of modernization, the modernization itself actually a fundamental transformation for humankind once for all at large. The experiences from the human civilizations are also absorbed by China and coming into China's features. And China developed itself from nil all the way till now. So the success itself is the disruptions of the human history, as well as the new chapter of human history. So I think this is more pertinent to talk about the characteristics featured by inclusiveness. As for some negative statement by some countries about our modernization, we don't care because actually, whatever we state, they would disagree, and we have to agree to disagree, and this is the right principle. And right now, we are talking about the common values and the general or more democratized values. That is not something that we pursue only. And for all the human beings, we have to construct a humanity shared community. So this is the first point. And the second, opening. China's modernization is always open. Key is passively or proactively, willingly or unwillingly. Yeah, because from the history, we are passively open our world or open our door. But our understanding of modernization, I think, need to add some new elements. Some European countries talking about left behind the backwardness or the binary, because after the Cold War or the World War II, the definition of the different worlds are done by Western countries or advanced countries, and they define themselves as advanced countries as opposed to developing countries or poor countries or least developed countries. So I think from the 5 elements, we have to converge altogether. And I think the CPC's nature itself is open. Like the Hong Kong, we do not pursue violence. And UK still maintain its engagement. And also the attaché office is still there. And also, but there's a lot of issues and confrontations and conflicts coming up. And after opening up and reforms from the independence, there's a lot of fruits of opening up and all the way up to the state level, from the heavy industry, the light industry, livelihood of the people, and enhanced very prominently. The GDP per capita is only 1/3 of South Africa before. But after we joined the WTO, especially China accelerated its development and achievements has been well known to the world. So we have to stick to the opening up, and opening up has been enshrined into our state constitution, and we will not change that. And next, I think what we concern most is whether or not we have the condition to open up and how open. We emphasize something critical, security, development, reform, stability. These are the former statements, but right now we emphasize security. And of course, we also emphasize state security, and also the CPC Congress, the 20th Congress also emphasized the security furthermore. But I think security is the foundation for us to cooperate. And that is different from the previous understanding about safety or security. Safety and security, these are the 2 elements, and we have to define them differently. So it is not only safety, but also security. And through cooperation, we can define them differently. And the security should not be based on the insecurity of other countries. And that is something different right now. So all things need to coexist within confrontations, privacy, we are enduring not so many problems, but right now we are in the cross points and confronting a lot of problems and challenges, but we're not afraid of them, and we can embrace the future development patterns of our own and also benefit all human beings. Thank you very much, Professor Wang. Yes, you have mentioned before, the report from the CBC National Congress emphasized the principles of Chinese leadership. And this is the highest wisdom accumulation of Chinese leadership. And each one of the words need to be analyzed and understood by us. And yes, Ambassador Shi previously also mentioned in a conference, emphasizing that we would not go back to the historical root of China's development, while we emphasize security or safety, because we have to open up even further and wider. Security is the precondition for opening up. Without the security, there is no reason for us to open up randomly or blindly. Yes, it is one issue. Yes. Yeah, I also got some coughing here. But of course, no problem because you are online. Yeah, Chinese policies from the last 10 years of the development. It's fair to say that we are the biggest country with the most civilized system, and that cannot also blind and overshadow other problems as well. There are the pros and cons of China's opening up route, but how to secure the security at the same time pursue opening up? There's no absolute security, even not possible for United States, and we have to pursue the common prosperity altogether. That is precondition for the security. There's a lot of buzzwords like dogma, reciprocity, and the mutual benefit, and these are also the hot words that you have described before. Yes, the Oriental wisdom can create a new paradigm for us to navigate through this uncharted water. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to invite Professor Wei Hongxia. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Zhang, and many thanks for the invitation from CG. Yes, I have heard a lot of statements and also conversations. I learned a lot. Talking about opening up, we have to digest this word. Talking about modernization, science, and the technology. Yes, I'm the last. Yes, to express myself. Yes, you're the last one on list. Yeah, today's topic is to talk about my observations on the current U.S. strategies. I have my own observations in this regard because in 2021, I've been part of the discussions and researches on the science and technology. When we are reflecting the 2021 to 2022's development, actually, there's a lot of progress that's been made in terms of the technology and science. In terms of the policies from the Biden administration, they emphasize competition, but featured mainly by science and technology. I'd like to summarize the strategies and policies towards China and their way of thinking. And at the governmental level, of course, the link or the scientific link between China and the US become trendy right now, or even at least look so. And the link sometimes stated by some experts is something that cannot be avoided. But we have to precisely understand this word. And according to my understanding and observation, and we have to deepen our insights to look at the different elements composing the current linking trend. There is no single voice in the United States. As far as I'm concerned, there are three camps. One is the containment. That is for a zero-sum game. Yes, they think that the bilateral science and technological corporations need to be winged, and that is actually advocated by those security, the national security advocates. And there's another camp featured by corporations. So this corporationist think that China's science and technology, yes, can benefit the United States. And so they advocate the cooperation between China and United States in science and technology. And they think that those camps featured by the advocates for the national security is exaggerating the security issues for the United States. And there's a lot in between in this camp. They think that China-US relations are very complicated. Zero-sum game is part of the game, and also the commonality is another part of the game. And the cost effectiveness has to be calculated very carefully. They think that they have to refine, and also they have to precisely look at the cost effectiveness of cooperation. And this part of the campaign, they are from the think tanks, or some of the politicians, or some of the experts. And for this thing, they think that they are think that the Congress and also the government should come to the front end to fight against China, or to confront China, to contain China. And the bipartisan, especially in terms of the science and the technological strategies, they're very, very aggressive right now. Third one is that they prioritize national interest in the United States first, like national the US first. This is the principle for them. We lost the audio. The audio is not stable. Am I audible now? Yes, okay. Okay, I will move on. US first is US political interest first. Right now, they are further stick to the science and technological development at the forefront. And they are claiming, and also they are monopolizing all these cutting-edge technologies in the world. Science and technology has a close relationship with their national interest. If we are looking at this concept of the United States about the national interest and national security as their basis for the discussion, there is very little room for us to arrange.
So under these leading principles, the U.S. strategies towards China, one is to weakening China, is to cut up China's supply chain, including imposing sanctions and strengthening themselves, restructuring their domestic industries, and thirdly, they are looking to working with the partners to improve the resilience and banning other countries to export important equipment to China, and they are working with the alliances. They ask alliances to follow the leadership of the US to isolate China. On the other hand, they form small pact like the Quad or AUKUS, all have these technology components to work with their alliance. They are also shelving some of their disputes, and the US is also creating competition between China and other regions. Like there's this transfer of certain manufacturing capabilities to Southeast Asia. The media is trying to sell the concept of increasing competition between China and Southeast Asia. So how should we? And the US is initiating new rules to put those in international rules to develop standards to isolate China. So these are the ways how the US is weakening China and trying to strengthen itself. So I have very quickly, one last minute. One, I think, Miss Wu, we're really running out of time. We'll have a lot of. But lastly, I think China and US, there should still be areas for further cooperation, like Dawei said, for new opening up we need to have accurate assessment of areas where can open and where we hope the other to open that is closed now, and what areas that other people want us to open, but we are not good. We're not ready to open. The U.S. They have reached this consensus, and they have taken some concrete actions, systemic actions, and they have caused difficulties for China-U.S. science and technology exchanges. We should by no means be optimistic. It can be happening every day. A very strong die can be destroyed simply because of a small loophole. China and the U.S., in terms of in the area of climate change or the global challenges, these cannot be addressed without the two major countries. China also made concrete contributions to international standards. That's why Ambassador Kerry and Minister Xie Zhenhua had also made it very clear when they met. So we really need to form the more communities of shared interest in the areas of agriculture, climate change, and we need to involve more stakeholders so that they can benefit from the Chinese market, so that they can have a bigger voice. So we need to identify the new common interest. We still need to do a lot of work. We need to be very careful, and we need to be cautious, and we don't have to be too pessimistic. Many countries, if they only rely on the U.S. supply chain, it's going to be very costly. So unilateral a lot of people suffer a lot. Not a lot of people say it, but if we look at the actions, we get. So we hear what people say and we see what they do. Okay, we are almost out of time, but it's really a rare opportunity. I would like to again ask you to use no more than 1 minute to just make some final points. Okay. I think opening up, it's opposite. In the past, the West wants China to open. Now the West is isolating China. So we are facing the darkest hours since the introduction of the reform and opening up. China is making breakthroughs. The unprecedented changes in 100 years. This is a big game. We will be proactively open up. We will open up to the world at different levels. I think China is walking out of the crisis. The president attended the China Arabic Forum. Is also one of the initiatives. We don't only have one partner. Most of the countries will not take sides between China and the US. And most countries, especially developing countries, they are in favor of China. They want to share the benefits of development from China. Mr. Gao, 1 minute. One last word. Okay, Mr. Liu Hong. One final comment, 1 minute. Thank you. I think China-US competition is going to be continue in the long run. So we need to do a good job by ourselves. Mr. Shi, you need to turn on your microphone. I think it's about the words and action. Many times we only hear what the US government has to say. Or we just look at what they do, or we can both hear what they say and see what they do. But when we talk about ourselves, overwhelmingly, we pay more attention to what we say. Actually, many review is more about the action, not just the words. Structural realism, pragmatism. One thing is very important in the international competition: the basic behavior. If the two sides are convergent, trends, to some extent, we should have equal ethics, equal morals. Then we'll see that the two competition behaviors will emerge. Otherwise, you are turning international competition to emotional parties. Mr. Wang, in the 19th National Party Congress report, opening will bring advancement. Closing up will lead to backwardness. So for Chinese, understanding opening up is already at the level of civilization. It is a state policy for us. Thank you, Mr. Wang. Yeah, from the level of civilization, it is based on the wisdom of the East. Madam Wei, just one word about China-US relations. China-US relations future will be dependent on the public opinion. The relationship between the two peoples will light up the future for the relations between the two countries. Just want to follow up with what Mr. Wang said. On the Bali Island, two leaders met and made people more confident, and we need to take concrete actions for continued development. Otherwise, it's not good for the industries of both countries. So we need to still seek more common interests to work out of the narrow mindset of unilateralism, hegemony, and which will truly benefit globalization. Thank you. I want to add one last word. Like CCG, you always talk about what should be there. This is not important. We must look at what there is. Otherwise, it will become just wishful thinking. Right, exactly. Yeah, we need to be realistic about what is really there. Thank you. Thank you. I wish everyone good health. Thank you.